Greetings, folks. It's nice to see you. My name is Dustin Cormier, and you're watching another episode of How to Rock Astrology. I am a Tropical Vedic Astrologer, and for our purposes, I'm going to be discussing today a little short version of my take on the 2026 prophecy. So really, it's been said for a long time that 2025, 2026 is going to have some crazy things going on, particularly because of what's called Bourbeau's basket. So when Pluto is in Aquarius, Neptune is in Aries, and Uranus is in Gemini, all at the beginnings of those signs. They're all coming into these masculine signs at the same time in a sort of kite formation, which does give a little bit of importance to the beginning of Libra as well as a part of that kite. So this video is going to be kind of hearkening on what I've already described in my Pluto and Aquarius for the all rising signs video. In those videos, I went really deeply into what's happening in the next coming decades for all signs. So this isn't so much just 2026. This is really a phenomenon that is going to be happening from 2025 till about 2033. So this is a shorter version of a longer video that I plan on doing. Keep your eyes peeled because there's a longer video coming. So I'm not a sensationalist. I'm not into creating a big hype or a panic where it's not necessary, but I do believe the world does go through shifts. And I don't think this is necessarily leading towards like war or total anarchy necessarily, but there are transformative aspects on the horizon that are indicative of possible big shifts happening all at once. I am somebody who for a long time was really into, especially around the area of 2012. I really, I'm a millennial. I'm born 1991. I've got Rahu, Neptune, and Pluto in Capricorn. So I'm into the whole Illuminati thing and that all the world elites are running the show behind the lines of political puppetry. And I think that the world has been begging for a recession, but inflation through the federal government of America, who's been dominating the world for a long time, and whose dollar pretty much sets the standard for monetary currency, I think it's possible that there might be a shift that happens in American domination. Trump doesn't want this inflation to happen because as long as the American dollar and markets are going really high, especially with high technology things like the S&P 500 market, America looks great, Trump looks great, and I think America just wants to squeeze that for as long as they can. Understandably, because when you're at the top of the pyramid, there's a lot of gains that you get in world economics. And ultimately, though, everybody has to have a little time in the sun and then come out of it. And I think America has spent a lot of time in the sun, and I think that there might be shifts that just equalize things a little bit. It's hard to say, but whether it's, America being the holder of the dollar standard right now for the world for a long time puts pressure on them to keep up appearances and to not go through recessions and this kind of thing. But this is also, it's also a bad pressure because every economy does well to healthily go through conservative periods. Here in Canada, we have a conservative government, and the Liberals and the Conservatives go back and forth. When the Liberals party and spend lots of money until everyone gets sick of the Liberals, and then the Conservatives have to tighten up their belt after the party and go through the withdrawal from the drugs and from the heroin of the inflation and of the spent money. So this is a natural cycle that happens to pretty much every country. America, I think, has been begging for it. And I think that 2025, 2026, in this period of time, might be a period where this kind of thing goes down. Hard to say. With Trump in office, there's a lot of things that can happen. So before we, let's dig into a little bit of astronomy here. I think that things will begin to emerge in the year of 2025. Some say things have been manifesting since 2020, including the pandemic that happened at that time. For all transits, what usually happens is that it's like the boiled frog thing. If you put a boiled frog, if you put a frog in a pot of boiled water, it's going to go, oh my God, it's so hot, and it's going to bounce out. But if you put a frog in cold water and you boil it slowly, the frog is going to get cooked by the time it realizes that it's getting cooked. It doesn't realize it's happening all at once. Large transits like what's happening in 2026 tends to be the same thing. We're not going to notice things immediately happening until we look back in like 2028 and say, wow, look at the ride we've been having. So let's officially, though, 2026 is when things are going to come together astronomically. So let's take a look at our calendar to see what we can expect to be manifesting in this way. This is our general calendar here. So we can see in February of 2026, Saturn and Neptune officially land in Aries with no more retrogrades. This is also when the year of the horse begins. In May of that year, Uranus officially joins the kite by sign by entering Gemini. So by May 2026, all of the outer planets have entered male signs. That's air and fire signs. From August 2026 onward to May 2028, this is the most intense period because eclipses are going to be occurring in the signs of Leo and Aquarius. And that's where Pluto is. So eclipses happening in Pluto, in Aquarius, where Pluto is, and Saturn, by the way, is going to be debilitated at that point, which is really, of course, by being in Aries and it's conjunct Neptune. There's a lot to be said about volatility and intensity there. Pluto is this really cataclysmic shifting planet, and being in Aquarius, it's at the root chakra, ruled by Saturn. So governmental changes tend to happen when Pluto goes through Aquarius. If Saturn is going to be debilitated at that time, it's going to show that Saturn has a hard time resisting and changing. As I often say, Saturn is about out with the bad and in with the good. It's about letting go of what doesn't work and receiving what does work. And so if there's anything going on in the world that's been causing economic disturbance, social and political disturbances, Saturn wants to get rid of these bad things. Now, when Pluto comes into Aquarius, it tends to shake and change the whole system from the ground up in order to account for difficulties that the world has been trying to go through. It's like when you've been holding in having to puke or something like that. You can hold it in for a long time, but there's a point where you have to say, okay, everybody stop. I need to throw up, and then throw up. Now, if, it's probably good, the sooner you get that out, the better. But when Saturn is in Aries, it's going to be hard for that Plutonian puke to happen. So a lot of things are going to be, it's like America's going to have to go pee. Not just America, but the whole world. It's going to have to go pee, but can't act on the urgency of getting out the bad. So that happening while there's eclipses occurring in Aquarius is signifying of interesting, shaky energy. Again, I'm not a sensationalist, but it does signify that the world's going to want some kind of transformation, but Saturn is going to resist it in some way. So again, this is just a quick wrap up. February 2026, Aries and Neptune finally touch down in Aries with no retrogrades. May 2026, Uranus joins by entering Gemini. It comes into a male sign, and it enters this formation of the sextile to Neptune and the trine to Pluto, making the basket officially at this point. Of course, in 2025, it's going to still be coming into play, but it's in 2026 in May that Uranus joins Gemini and has no retrogrades, and so it's officially joined by sign at that point. August of that year, we have South Node's eclipses in Leo and North Node eclipses in Aquarius, because the North Node is going to be in Aquarius, up until about March 2028. This is our first big break when the North Node enters Capricorn. So now Saturn, of course, a month later in April, if I got that right, March, yes, and then April 2028, Saturn officially enters Taurus. Saturn is the dispositor of Aquarius. So now the dispositor of Aquarius is no longer debilitated. So by April 2028, there's going to be a huge breath of fresh air. The paint will be much less wet at that point. But before that, the paint is going to be wet, especially from August 2026 to March 2028. You guys can see what I mean when I say that. If the paint is wet, we can paint whatever picture we like. but so can the people who have capital interests at the expense of the common person, the 1%. So there's going to be a bit of a tug-of-war and tussle, and it's very important that everybody understands that the paint is wet at this point, that we're going through a transformative period, and that we're paying attention to what the world unfolds here, because we are the world. We are the people. We create our reality. Even when the people who are ruling above the common classes are trying to play some kind of shell game to make things look like they're going certain ways, we have the capacity to see it for ourselves if we are aware enough and brave enough. Now, by October 2029, the North Node enters Sagittarius, and the South Node enters Gemini, and that's, of course, where Uranus is. So the eclipses are going to occur in the Sagittarius-Gemini axis. And at that point, there's going to be significations there because Uranus is still a part of Bourbeau's basket at that point. But of course, by around April 2031, the nodes they enter Scorpio and Taurus. And so the eclipses are no longer associated with Bourbeau's basket at that point, right? Especially because Uranus at this point is 5 degrees away from... See, Uranus is at 19 degrees. Neptune is at 13 degrees. So Uranus is more than 5 degrees away from the trine of Pluto and Neptune at that point. Then in March 2032, Uranus is 10 degrees away from Pluto and Neptune. And so Bourbeau's basket, it's losing its impact. Bourbeau's basket is, of course, again, this formation that we see here. That, again, the kite formation. So that the kite formation is losing impact. And especially in June 2033, Uranus enters Cancer. This marks the official end of this intense world-changing period, which means it's from 2025 till about 2033. So it's a long ride. There's a lot of time, a lot of energy that can be experienced and expressed in this amount of time. So all these intense indications really suggest volatility and uncertainty in coming years, for better and for worse. I do believe that in such volatile times, there is always possibilities for good and bad for everybody. We just have to be brave enough to understand it. As the old saying goes in Chinese, the same word that the Chinese use for crisis is the same symbol that they use for opportunity. So crisis is really opportunity. That's what it really is that there's an opportunity to heal something. Just like they used to say, I'm really a big fan of Gabor Mate. Gabor Mate is this modern healer. Something he likes to say is that the Lakota tribe, whenever there was a person sick in the Native American Lakota tribe, they used to say, this is an opportunity for us to heal. We appreciate you showing that you are sick, that you've got this mental illness. Instead of just prescribing them a pill, they would say, your illness is our illness. We're glad to see you being brave enough to ask for help and to show you have this illness, because now we can see that this is an opportunity for us to help you and for us to help ourselves. Because if this has happened to you, that's happening to us. Very cool consciousness. That's Gabor Mate, if you've ever heard of him. Now, I recommend, since Pluto is in Aquarius all this time, there's an importance to understanding how money, government, taxes, and the communal management of resources works generally for everybody on the planet. Now, a lot of people are big on the Age of Aquarius idea. So the Age of Aquarius is something that everybody tends to rely on in some ways when it comes to understanding a lot of big shifts that are happening in the world. And as a Tropical Vedic astrologer, there's reasons why I've come to understand that the Age of Aquarius is bullshit. There's a lot to say there. You can check out my Age of Aquarius debunked video if you want to learn a little bit more about that. It has to do with the fact that the precession of the equinox is not moving through sidereal signs, because sidereal astrology is considered bullshit by the Vedic people. But however you want to define that, there is still Aquarian energy happening every time Pluto goes through Aquarius, of course. And the world is being shaken up in its root chakra. We in Vedic astrology consider that the chakras are, that's why I've got this picture in the background of my thing here where, come on, give me a break, where we can see this is the rising, the signs, all are ruled by planets, and those planets have this formation that resonates with the chakras, right? Leo and Cancer at the top. And then to the left of right in Leo and Cancer, we have Gemini and Virgo, the throat chakra, speaking. And then to the left and right of those, we have Libra and Taurus, the heart chakra. To the left and right of those, we have Aries and Scorpio. Then we have Sagittarius and Pisces. And then we have Capricorn and Aquarius. And that is ruled by Saturn at the bottom. Saturn is the root chakra. It is the ruler of the bottom of things. And so this indicates new ways of viewing each individual's place in the world, and a need for everyone to develop their own survival assets and fiscal responsibility. Community organization is what is kind of happening for everybody right now, as well as learning basic survival skills and practical social contributions to the Saturn stuff that can seem a little boring to a lot of people. Plumbing, electricity, farming, agriculture, psychology. It's Capricorn, the feminine side of Saturn. Chemistry. These kinds of Saturnian hands-on skills will be important as we depend less on frivolous consumerism and spending, and more on what we can do for ourselves and each other with our knowledge and our talents, and being appreciated for what we can contribute. So I think everybody should have a skill, a job, a work ethic, and some way to contribute to society. One of the main pictures that I'm showing in my other longer video, and I don't want to spend too much time on all this because you'll see a lot of this in this other video, but this is like Aquarius. It is a sort of social hierarchy and a territory status hierarchy pecking order. What a society gets from you is a basic value that helps the collective survive. What does the collective need? Can you give that? If you can't, if all you can produce is something that's not ultimately useful to the collective, then you're not going to get as much back from the collective. So this is Aquarius. It's a bit of a melting pot energy. And these are not inherently bad things unless they have not been shaken up for a long time. So we are all developing on this capacity. One of the ways we need to do it is to evolve fiscal awareness and responsibility. I've been putting a lot of energy and emphasis into the DIY index fund market. It's not necessarily stocks, being a day trader, but this is when you take 10% of your income, you put it away, and before you spend any money, you put 10% of your income into an investment in the market, because the market goes up and down and up and down and up and down, but because of inflation, it eventually goes up over time. And even when the markets crumble and crash, ideally, if you've still got some kind of simple job that you work away, contribute to society, and survive, take a little bit of your extra money, put it away into these kinds of investments, and ideally, if the whole world doesn't completely blow up, if you put $30,000 away right now in investments, in proper investments that you can leave for like 30 years, if you're a young person like me, that money will eventually turn into $900,000 just from you having planted that seed, because of the power of compounded interest. So I recommend you look up DIY index investing if this is something that you're interested in. Everybody should know about taxes, because in whatever hippie world might occur, whatever anarchy that might happen in the world after some kind of shift happens, if it is going to be the case, we're all still going to need to understand taxes. We're all going to need to understand how to develop not necessarily centralized government, but some force of co-regulation amongst larger tribes, villages, and entities. And hopefully it'll be more localized and less centralized. But there should still be some central configuration of people who are all coming together and trading through something like taxes. That's why I think learning about taxes is the Saturnian egg that has come from this era. Now, the point here is that however the world is going to go, all of us need to have Saturn. All of us need to have a 1-year plan, a 2-year plan, a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan, and a 30-year plan, a retirement plan, to have money figured out that you've been investing so that by the time you're retired, you've got something to relax on, so that when you're old, you're not going to fritter away either working at a grocery store or not having the money to go to a nursing home and ending up like a lot of my dad's baby boomer friends at this time who have no money, they have no kids, and the system's not taking care of them because the baby boomer generation is so bloated that they're too old to work, they're too old to do anything, they need to be taken care of, they got nobody to take care of them, so become homeless. There's lots of mentally ill 60-plus people walking around the streets of Canada right now, and it's so sad. And it's partly because a lot of these people haven't developed this conscientiousness of bringing the future into the present by being mindful of every moment what you do with your energy. And you can live a non-stimulated life. This is very Virgo. I got a lot of Virgo in my chart. Being able to breathe, meditate, and get through the desire to have more. I wish there was more in my life. This has to be mediated through meditation and through doing cheap social affairs. Instead of us all being in our own little bubble world of our cell phones, we need to go out and have simple communication, community activities, music especially. I'm huge on music, sports, art, jam sessions, festivals that don't cost you $500 and a bag of MDMA to go there. This is how we are going to get past this the world is going to burn mindset. We need to give ourselves joy, but simple joys of connecting with humanity in a real way, not just in the digital, disconnected way. So when it comes to this DIY investing thing, I don't necessarily mean to go out and spend money on crypto. Bitcoin is interesting, but I don't mean to invest in Bitcoin as a stock. I mean, Bitcoin is interesting because it has the capacity to be decentralized, and the world might go towards something like that. Although it's very possible, because if Bitcoin can't be inflated, then there's something interesting to be said there. But it's very possible some elite is going to get its hands on whatever the world is doing and try to take advantage of it. That's a whole conversation happening in today's time. So our economies are definitely bloated, and it's hard to say what exactly is going to be happen to our economies as time goes on. But no matter what, it's not about the immediate economy. It's about developing Saturn consciousness for all of us right now. Readjusting how we have our own contributions to society and how we can learn to make society work for us. And coming together in community. Now, this is the next conversation I want to have. So I do believe a draw towards community is suggested. It's us healing together, not apart. Consumerism being lessened. Community involvement beyond religion. And this is a big, important, and what I think is possibly controversial topic that I see happening in the near future. Is that I think that we need to find ways of humanity coming together that's not necessarily based on strictly religion. Because you can have your own religion, but still hang out with people for this reason. I'm a musician. When I come together with my musician friends, whether they're Hindu, they're Muslim, they're whatever, when we play music together, it's a reason for us to bond and jam. That's why the word jam is there. So I think one of the important ways that this needs to happen is through three important institutions that I see happening in our world. One of them has already been trying to come through and it's disrupted the other two, but it's happening for a reason. That is the LGBTQ two-spirit plus community. It needs to open its heart to itself, open its wings, and be accepted by the world. And of course, they've already been trying to do this, but it's been happening with difficulty. And the reason is that the male and female gender are losing their footing for whatever questionable reason that's happening. Now, this is why I think the LGBTQ two-spirit plus community should have what would probably be called the purple tent. Now, this is where this is coming from. Have you guys ever heard of something called the red tent? The red tent is when women come together, and some people say just people who bleed versus some people who identify as women. There could be even different ones, the dark red tent and the pink tent, if that's what it has to be. But either way, women come together in the red tent and talk about the emotional depths that women all share in womankind. Whatever that means for women. That is the red tent movement. And this is something that has existed long before the non-binary stuff that's been happening in today's time. For thousands of years, women have always come together and shared in their own woes, their struggles, their unique ecstasies, and the unique joys of being a woman, of giving birth, and being the bearer of the emotional and the bearer of a lot of things that men have not had to be the bearer of. The fact that they have periods and that they have to go through the shedding of their uterine lining, and this forces them to reckon with emotional cycles that men do not have to. The red tent, I adore the red tent idea. It's very important. And furthermore, something that I've come to realize is that there's also something called the men's tent, men's circles. And this is a movement that's really big in a lot of places where men come together and they experience amongst each other what it is to have male consciousness and energy. And there are things that men can talk about amongst each other that women will never understand. And there are things that women can talk about amongst each other that men will never understand. And they should be encouraged to have the space to, because this is a reason to bond with your fellows beyond religion. This is very important. You can I can bond as a man with Muslim, Hindu, Christian men, however much I want as men, and we can share in that, and we don't need religion to tie us together. We just need our shared testosterone psyche. As well, I believe also in the same way, people who identify as men, who are trans and are moving through that thing, they should have the space in either men's circles or the men's circles light. However that has to go. I'm not, I don't know how exactly that has to work. We all have to work it out amongst each other how exactly we want to deal with that. But the point is that the men and women should make space for the LGBTQ plus people, because they're not going away. The trans people are not going away. And they are our brothers and sisters and everything in between. They are a part of our community. And it would be stupid for us to not see them as a part of our resources of coming together and bonding with each other. This is one of the reasons why our world is in such an economic turmoil. And in my opinion, the fact that Neptune is in Aries, which is such a very gender-driven energy, right? Neptune in Aries is signifying, even Neptune being in Pisces, and lots of stuff's been happening with Pisces, but Neptune being in Aries during this basket formation really shows that what's been happening with gender, in my opinion, has to come to the fore. We've seen a lot of men who have Aries energy are very masculine. We see a lot of women who have Aries energy are very feminine. So Aries is a gender energy. It's a part of what I am in my body. And the axis of Aries and Libra play a big part in what gender means for all of us. And this includes the trans people also have Aries and Libra in their charts. So they have their own way of dealing with it. There's lots to talk about there, They have their own issues. They have their own difficulties, but they also have their own joys. And they have a lot to share with the male and female population. that's very good. They are the intermittent people who can blend between both. I'm kind of that thing. I'm a little bit of I'm a reflector in human design. I can be non-binary in a lot of ways. I'm a very feminine man sometimes, although I'm a very masculine man sometimes. I spin both. And people like this are important for men to communicate to the men their strengths, but this is what the women want you to hear. And then these people, the intermediate people, the neutral, the neuter, the Mercury people, the non-binary people, can then go to the women and say, this is what the men want you to hear, but here's the good things that you guys have going on. All three of these are important in the coming age. So this has been the gist of this. It's a little mini package of what I see happening, but I'm going to have a longer video on this pretty soon. It's going to talk even more about these same subjects. Now, if you enjoyed what you saw here today, feel free to let me know. Put in the comments. Tell me if it frustrated you. Tell me if you thought I'm on the right track. I'd love to hear it. Let me know what you guys thought, and stay in touch with me. I've always got more stuff coming out on my channel. And I think eventually I'm writing books right now, and I think I'm going to start coming into this consciousness of the transforming world landscape. Any encouragement, any criticism that you have in regards to where you think I'm going, I'd love to hear it, because it's becoming more and more important to me as time goes on. Thanks a lot, folks. Thanks so much for watching. See you guys again soon.